Good evening and welcome to the Simply Colorful FiberCast. Today's date is January 29th, 2016. My name is Lynn Marquidant and I'm your host. And welcome to the Simply Colorful FiberCast. Did you know that on this date in 1958, Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward were married? You know what else? Edgar Allan Poe published The Raven. And Peter, Paul, and Mary signed their first recording contract back in 1962 on this day. And in case you wanted to know when Edgar Allan Poe published The Raven, it was 1845. That's almost, 180 years, right? Amazing. So welcome. But that's not the purpose of our show. Today we're going to work on Clue 3 of the Simply Colorful Mystery Quilt, and I'm so glad you could join me. I hope that you're having fun with it so far. I know I am. Today there's a lot of marking and a lot of sewing, and we're making some units, and we're actually sewing some units together. So we'll start at the beginning. Before I begin, though, I wanted to share with you, behind me, I finished another UFO. It's my purple, quilt that I started with a pile of scraps, and Kelsey Ullman at Blueberry Lane Studios quilted it for me, and she did a beautiful job, and I love it. And so I bound it, last night, the night before, I put a sleeve on it, and I hung it, and you'll see it's really wide. It's a very oddly shaped quilt. It's actually very wide, but not very deep. So it's buckling because it literally can't fit completely behind me flat. So that feels good. I hope you're working on your UFOs. Remember, we're following the All People Quilt UFO Challenge this year. Do 12, one a month, and we will feel really good at the end of the year. So let's get down to Clue 3. And as always, Simply Colorful FiberCast is just all about us having fun together. It's like a virtual sewing bee. Send pictures. Post them on the Simply Colorful Facebook page. Send me email to lmarquidant@gmail.com. However you want to post it or email it to me, go for it. Comment on other people's work. I love to see the colors people are working on with their mystery. And we certainly will take your emails in a few minutes after we get started with clue number 3. So let's get started. It's called Oh Baby Baby Mystery Quilt. We're going to make a Unit 6. And Unit 6 will look like this for me. That is my fabric A, which starts out as a 2.5-inch square. This is my fabric B. Starts out by a 2 by 2-inch square. This one's a 2 by 2-inch square, and then this one is a 2 by 3.5-inch square. And we're just going to sew them together in those units. We have to make 24 of them. So I'm going to do chain piecing, and it's literally, I know you might not be able to see because it's gray on gray, but here's my fabric. A is the white, the gray is the B, and the B, and I literally have 10 more of these to do. I got started before we went live, and so I've done 14, and I have 10 more that I have to get done. I did that so that we can get to the next part, so we can do all of the units at least while we're together, and you can see really how easy it is to put them all together. And the band is playing downstairs. I don't know if you can hear them. I really need to record them and get you some music. And I was thinking, I have no idea how much thread I have in my bobbin, so we could run out. But I still have my 1/4-inch seam here, my card, it's working well. And actually, we did have a question. We might as well start right out with viewer questions. And Jean wrote in ahead of time. Remember, for your drinking games there, you should choose the word Jean. You'll drink a lot, because I mentioned Jean a lot. she had a question for all of us FiberCasters. She wanted to know how many people document their quilts as they make them, meaning take a picture, keep a journal, date them, and just document how long it took, where it was made, etc. She said that she used to do it all the time, but about 3 years ago, she got away from it, and she's wondering if it's worth it. So what's your take on that? Ooh. Oh, here we go. Hey, hi, Chris. You getting psyched for Missouri? I am. Let's see. So Chris says, hi, Lynn. Loving the new quilt behind you. Thank you. It's one I started years ago, and I'm glad it's done. It actually reminds me of computer chips. I don't love the little pieces, and I've shown it once before, I think. I don't love the little pieces around the squares because it looks like a computer chip board or something. I don't know why I react like that, but it's going to be warm. We're going to put it on our bed in the summertime. Oh, and my hair looks adorable. Well, thank you. I'm getting it done, cut, colored next Tuesday, and it was really flat before I came on here, so I tried to puff it up. We'll see. At the end of 60 minutes, you know, it usually goes, poof. But what do you do? Do you document your quilts, Chris? Hey, Noni P. Thanks for the congrats, and thanks for the Twitter feed. Uh-oh. Oh, good. That was a long time ago. Never mind. I didn't say a thing. So, speaking of documenting quilts. No, I'm going to hold off. I'm not going to tell you I have an opinion and thoughts on it, and then I have my reality. So, all right, so since Chris is out there, I'm so glad you're out there. Abby, if you're out there, hi. Happy Friday. You got through another week. We got through another week. For anyone who may not have heard yet, there are 6 of us, friends, going to Missouri, to the Missouri Star Quilt Company next week. We leave on Thursday, the 4th of February. And we have been so excited planning this thing, and I keep remembering that half of the fun of travel, and studies show this, that half of the fun is actually anticipating and thinking about it. So I'm thoroughly enjoying it, and we've been talking about it, and we've got different little surprise plans, and we've got the van that's on the other end in Hamilton, where after we land, we're all going to get into this van. Hopefully we all fit. Especially since I'm thinking of bringing T-shirts for everyone who participates in FiberCast with us out there. So simply iron toward the dark fabric. And then cut them apart. You have to admit, so far this quilt hasn't been very difficult, right? Hopefully the pieces are big enough for you. You could make this with bigger pieces, so put those aside. But I like this. As I say, this is my girl version. I've done it in the boy version, meaning basically it's pink and then my boy version is blues. And I like it. It's very pretty. And as I say, it can be more like a lap quilt. It doesn't have to be a baby's quilt. Oh, and I have to show people different, let's see. Am I doing this wrong? Yeah. Let's make sure. 1, 2. That'll work. For some reason, this time around on this mystery quilt, because our first clue was cutting only, I keep getting confused whether we're on week 2 or week 3. Having a hard time keeping that straight. So I apologize in advance if I goof things up. But I don't think so. I think we're swimming along. So once I'm done sewing these, I'm going to check my email and see if anyone has weighed in on the question of documenting your quilts. And maybe there's a follow-on question, which is, if you do document them, what do you use? Wouldn't it be great if there's already a piece of software or a site that could help us do that? Or what don't you use, or why don't you do it? With this one, you don't even have to match any seams. Doesn't get much easier than that. And it's fun. This is my favorite part of creating these pieced units. Oh, Chris! Chris says, in answer to documenting, she says, I do document and keep photos and fabric swatches. Ooh, I didn't even think of the fabric swatch idea. That's a good idea. Very good. Okay, let's see who else. Okay. Ooh. Pam Black at Talk Talk. Pamela, hi, welcome. Pamela says, and we're going to talk about the mystery quilt, and when we get to documenting the quilts, we'll talk about that. She says, thank you for your Oh Baby Baby quilt pattern. It looks fun. She says, I've printed out the pattern, but have not been able to start it yet, as I've been making curtains for my bedroom. Ah, she says, not my favorite job, but it seemed a good idea at the time, and it's certainly not as much fun as quilting. I know what you mean, but it's going to be nice when they're done. She says, I hope you have a wonderful time with your friends at your slumber retreat. Probably not a lot of sleep, just fun, laughter, and chatter. That's true. And matching pajamas, too. She says, looking forward to watching you all next Saturday morning. It sets me up for the day after watching you. Oh, that's wonderful, Pamela. Welcome and happy Saturday. I hope you have a nice cup of coffee. Oh, Colleen says hello, and she says, oh, she thinks it's funny that I said in the clue about watching from Missouri, about watching something that can go wrong. She says, you're so funny and truthful. First, your shows are not boring now. First, your shows are not boring, but she says basically they're more interesting when things go a little haywire. And so who knows what's going to happen next Friday night out in Missouri. But that reminded her of a story. She says, and this is Colleen again, she says, my husband used to play on a recreational softball team. These guys, while not old, they were past their prime. She says, if the game was played well by both sides, I'd be bored and freezing by the end of it. We have cold spring and summer nights, she says. But if the sprinklers suddenly came on, or the ball was dropped or overthrown, or a myriad of other mistakes happened, that made for exciting and memorable games. Oh, great. So, Colleen, now you're encouraging mess-ups. I love it. And I love this story. She says, of course, the team sponsor was a bar, and all of the players went to the bar after the game to rehash. I love this. She says, I'm not much of a drinker, and by the end of the night, the way those drunken ball players told their stories, you'd have thought they were playing on a completely different field than the one I was watching. And for the most part, I was the only fan in the stands. I would bring my dog. It was boring, but my husband always invited me to go, and I did. Oh, that's great. Oh, Colleen, that's great. She says, she concludes with, I look forward to every Friday night just for you and your YouTube. Thank you and your family of supporters, your sister, your husband, your mother, and your dog, etc. And all of you FiberCasters, we're all supporting each other. Colleen in overcast California due to rain again soon. Yippee. Aw, great story. Thanks. Let's see. Oh, Sue Norton. Oh, she's back, she says. She says, hi, Lynn. Thanks for the kind words. Dad passed away late Saturday night. Sue, I thought maybe that was the case, and we welcome you back. We missed you. And she goes on to say, glad I was able to spend a week with him. Yes. Me too. She says, I missed FiberCast, just trying to get things back to normal. Let's quilt and be happy for all the good times in the past I had with my dad. Life is too short to waste a minute. There are a lot of quilts still left to make. Absolutely. Absolutely. We will do just that. Send a picture of what you work on. And sometimes, some days you'll feel like it and other days you won't. That's okay. Welcome. Eileen. Hi. She says, oh, stiffening crochet stuff. Oh, that's right. Eileen sent this note last week. She's making snowflakes for well ahead in advance for the upcoming bazaar, I think, for church. And she wanted to know how to stiffen them. She says, hi, a thank you to anyone who sends out an idea about stiffening agents in advance and letting you know that I have been searching out stiffening and blocking videos on YouTube. She says, so far, watered down school glue has been the best after starch that she doesn't want to use. That's very interesting. So these are for crocheted, and I should go back and find your original note. In fact, let me do that. Here we go. Okay, so this was last week, last Friday night. It was cold and wet in Northern California. Nah, she says she needed that water. That was okay. She was sitting there crocheting earring pieces, seeing as I can't sew on my sewing machine. Okay, let's see. Anyone out there know of a good stiffening product for thread crochet? Not starch because it attracts moths and other bugs. So, a week later, Eileen has said that watered down glue, I'm assuming Elmer's glue, is working best. That's good to know. I had heard of, I think I wrote to you, sugar, which certainly would attract bugs. Yuck. And don't some people iron with vodka? Watered down vodka? Does that do any stiffening? Anyway, glad to hear the glue's working. If anyone else knows of anything good to use to stiffen crochet, let us know. Kathy K, hi. I hope that the instructions are okay. Kathy says, hello from a cold Illinois. Quilter, she says. She says, just a quick note to say hello, everyone. I will not be sewing on Oh Baby Baby because I'm totally and utterly spent on Unit 5. That's very funny. I had to do a double take when I saw you write that. Unit 5 is nothing more than putting aside 2-inch squares. That's funny. Anyway, really, she says, I'm trying to fix a huge cutting mess on my latest log cabin. Cut them logs just a bit, a whole lot of the other side of correct. That's what I get when I'm trying to cut fabric at 3 a.m. She says, I am a late night person, but in hindsight, I should have waited. Anywho, she says, I will watch and get all the good vibes from you and all the other Linnigans. Have a great and safe trip. I'm beyond sad that I cannot go to Missouri with you all. Tell Jenny, hey, for me. Kathy K. We will, Kathy. We definitely will. Thanks for writing. And I hear you about log cabins and them going wonky. Behind me, that happened. But I got so carried away with just sewing my scraps in circles. In fact, I was looking, some of those pieces are literally, like the end result is 1/4 of an inch thick. It was fun to do. It was several years ago. Okay, so let's get this going. And so this one, again, all you do is, I do the flag method. I iron to the dark side, which is my gray. This is really not very dark, but it's darker than the white. And I just go down the line here. Oh, and Kathy K, since you're out there, I'm going to show you a trick on one of the units with sandpaper. So thank you for sending that in. Okay, almost done with these. So isn't that interesting that back in 1958, that's when Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward were married. Okay, so we have 54, brother. Unit 6, we have 24 of them done. So let's put that here. Unit 7 is the very same unit, just made with fabrics A and D. So I have 10 more of those to make, and I think what I'm going to do, though, is for now, I'm going to skip doing those because we just did them. But it's the same way, right? You sew those two together, then you sew that one on. I think I want to move right on to unit. We can come back to that. We'll come back to that. Unit 8, because this is more marking, and we have a tip. This is what we're going to make, Unit 8. And it's basically fabric A. You start with 3.5 inches by 3.5 inches. And then you start with a piece of fabric E, 2 inches by 2 inches. And what you do is you lay, so we're going to use this sandpaper to hold down the black blocks that we need to draw a line across. And you'll notice that when I draw with my friction pen and the sandpaper, the piece of fabric does not move. Whereas if I went over here and I did it, and I start to draw it, it moves. It moves. And it doesn't come on as cleanly square. So get yourself a piece of sandpaper whenever you need to mark your squares, and you will be unbelievably happy. And it doesn't have to be this coarse. It could be any grit, really. This was just one I had. I had 4 left. So this is going to take you a while because you have to make 48 of these. And for anyone out there who is thinking of doing a scrappy one of these, remember I said A is what you could do scrappy? If you wanted to, you could do all of your A pieces in a scrappy, a light neutral scraps, or whatever you were to choose. Okay, so I'm putting that away. That was the sandpaper. Thank you, Kathy K, for that tip. And then literally, after I've marked it, I line up right sides together, the corners. And then, this is key, I sew one thread to the right of my line. And it's a proverbial one thread, probably more like two, and it probably meanders a little. But the reason for that is so I have enough of the fabric to fold over so that I keep a 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch square. If I sewed right on the line, you would find, in fact, we're going to do that. Why don't we do that? We have extra. Let's do that just for kicks. Okay, so I'm going to draw my line. Okay. So I've drawn my line from point to point, and on this one from point to point. This one I sewed away from the line, so I did not sew on the line. Okay, so there's one. Now let's put right sides together, and now I'm going to sew right on the line. Okay, so now I sewed on the line as much as I could. So that's on the line, and this one is a few over. Now, what we want is to have these both, we're going to iron them both open, and then we're going to see that the one we did right should be more square and 3.5 inches. And it'll be interesting to see if this really works. This is not going to show very well. Oh, brother. This is not going to show very well at all. Okay, so, I mean, we're talking threads, so let's see. And you guys know I'm not a particular quilter, so why I care about this, I don't know. All right, let's go. That's pretty darn good. 3.5 by 3.5. That one works. How about this one? Well, this one actually works too. If anything, it's a little bit wide. So, do with that little experiment what you will. I'm using them both. After all this. But other times it really has been, makes a difference. That was clean as mud, that little experiment. Brother. Oh, can you believe it's almost February? Where did the month go? I think this is now extra, but we'll just do it anyway. Oh, Mom, if you're out there, the amaryllis you gave me at Christmas is blooming, and it's pretty. It's like a red and white. It's got 2 flowers on it. It's not huge, but it's very pretty. So I literally now just cut 1/4 of an inch off. That might be enough. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that is. I sewed a number of these before we went on the air so that we would have them. I tell you, I look forward to every week because I like doing these clues. Okay, so oops. Now we have 48 Unit 8s. And I think, so we have Unit 8, 7, and 6. And we're going to put those together to make the rest. And I'm not going to get to the rest of those. Now we're going to make Unit 9 and Unit 10. But first, let me check and see who else is out there. And tell you a little bit more about what happened on this day in history. I must admit that, so there's this website, history.com, This Day in History, and there are a lot of things that either I couldn't pronounce or they were world geopolitical type history that I have no context for. In 1979, Deng Xiaoping and Jimmy Carter signed the Accords. He was the deputy premier of China. He met Jimmy Carter, our president, and together they signed historic new accords to reverse decades of U.S. opposition to the People's Republic of China. In 1820, King George III died. 10 years after mental illness forced him to retire from public life, King George III, the British king who lost the American colonies, dies at the age of 82. In fact, he was 20 years old when he became king. In 1760, he succeeded his grandfather, George II, as king of Great Britain and Ireland. This one's close to home. Remembering the big snowfall that we've just had down in many of our viewers' area, in D.C. area and Kentucky and Nashville. Back in 1922, a theater collapsed in Washington, D.C. because accumulated snowfall from the blizzard collapsed the Knickerbocker Theater. The blizzard formed in the Carolinas on January 26th and moved into the Washington area the following day. For 2 days, snow blanketed the nation's capital, resulting in accumulations of more than 2 feet. Doesn't that sound familiar? Oh, let's see. Let's do one more. Dr. Strangelove premieres in 1964. So Stanley Kubrick's black comic masterpiece, Dr. Strangelove, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, opened in theaters to both critical and popular acclaim. The movie's popularity was evidence of changing attitudes toward atomic weapons and the concept of nuclear deterrence. Well, very interesting. Oh, and here's one more. In 1936, on this day, January 29th, the U.S. Baseball Hall of Fame elected its first members, and they were Ty Cobb, Babe Ruth, Honus Wagner, Christy Mathewson, and Walter Johnson. So again, in 1936, the U.S. Baseball Hall of Fame elected its first members into Cooperstown, New York. So that's the first day. Beth is out there. Beth is going to meet us in Missouri. She says, "Happy Friday, Lynn and Fibercasters." She's making a little pile of goodies bags for a special occasion. She says 6 days until MSQ. So excited, warming up my pajamas and ready to learn from Jenny. See you in 144 hours, Beth. Oh, those are neat. Neat bags. Check these out, you guys. I love it. You see those? Oh, special occasion bags. Neat. Can't wait to see you. We get there. Debbie lands at 2 on Thursday, so we won't be leaving from the airport until then. So it might be 4 or 5 before we get there. Linda, hi Linda. She says, I'm working on the baby quilt with you tonight. Love your completed UFO. I haven't finished my January one yet, but I'm very close. Ooh, good. Can't wait. She says, I'm using my 404. I just love this machine. Like Marquet, I have a couple dozen older machines that I love to work on and then use for sewing, including a few treadles. Wow. Glad I could catch you tonight. Oh, I love your 404. And I love your colors. Huh. I don't know if you guys can see that. I love that. All we need now is to see your face. We have to figure out this joint Google Hangout thing. Oh, I love your 404. I would love one of those. I love this puppy, my Sloan Ashland, which was made by Toyota. And it's like a Morse. It's like any of those that were made in the 50s. And I don't really know that much about them, but that's what I've learned so far. I discovered it's getting dusty. I've had it out here for so long, so I'm going to make it a cover after the mystery quilt's over. I need to make a cover. Of course, I could put its real cover on, actually. Okay, Deb C. on the record keeping. She's weighed in. She says, yes, on keeping record of the quilts with pictures. I've only made a few, but I do and have kept it, even if it's just for me. Deb, that's great. And Chris, that's great, too, that you keep the swatches. Deb, you could keep swatches if you're not doing that yet. I think it's imperative that we all document these quilts, if for no other reason, for ourselves. Do I do it? No. So imperative is a very strong word that does. I shouldn't have used that word. We should, especially with all this technology. It doesn't take that long. It's not like we have to go process pictures at the processing studio or any of that. So I hope maybe by spurring us on, Jean, you've taught us all that we should do it. Some of us do it more lackadaisically than others. I think my problem, here's one of my stumbling blocks right now, is I can take pictures just fine of my quilts here. I can post them on Facebook or Instagram, that's fine, but that's very loose, right? I don't have a good way of putting them in a journal type thing. Like, I don't have a color printer. I don't have a photo printer, so I don't have that capability because I could print it out and then maybe glue it into a journal. It's almost like I need something online that is journal looking that I could just drag and drop my pictures into and make some notes. And then periodically I could print it out if I wanted. I don't know. There's so many cool things online. Like maybe there's a bookmaking site we could use. Anyway, Deb C., thank you for weighing in. Ooh, Lorna. Hi, Lorna. She says, happy Friday. She says, I just take pictures. I'm really bad. I don't even put a label on them. I know! Like this quilt behind me. No label yet, but I have to do it. In fact, I cut out pieces of muslin, 10-inch by 10-inch. Remember that? Almost probably more than a year ago. And you literally fold it in half so it's like a diamond, a triangle. And put that in the corner and at least write on it with my Pigma pen who made it. I want to make sure I put Kelsey's name on it. Whenever Chris does a long arm, I make sure I put her name on it. The date. Well, Lorna. So Lorna has weighed in. At least you take pictures. She says, I love that quilt behind you. Have fun next week in Missouri. Looking forward to your broadcast. Take lots of pictures and be safe. We will. We will. Thanks. Joanna, hi. She says, what I'm working on. I'm sitting down in my rocker, taking apart some units I sewed incorrectly. Oh, bummer. She says, thanks for FiberCast, Joanna. Oh, they're pretty. Aw. It looks like, oh, I'm sorry. Looks like you put a couple of the 3.5 inches by 1 inch by 2 inches. Let me know if there's a way I could have made that easier for you. Because I know that they, well, Okay, 2 more here, and then I'm going to start making units 9 and 10. That's frustrating when you sew units that don't go together right. Clue 3 at the beach. Oh, Allie. Hi. Down under. Happy Saturday. She says, hi, Lynn. We're camping by the beach this weekend. It's a little overcast, but we are expecting another supercell storm later this afternoon. Yesterday's storm didn't cause any damage where we are, but did elsewhere in Queensland. So, she says, I'm set up to sew. She says, I'm still looking for clue 3 and trying to get YouTube to work. Uh-oh. Internet connection has been disrupted by the storms around. This weekend we are in the Sunshine Coast. Not sure where we will be next weekend. Leaving Tuesday and heading south. She says, have a great weekend, Lynn. Thank you, Allison. You too. And I hope you do get internet connectivity. Hopefully, if you can see this at least, maybe even if you don't download the clue, I'll give you enough information to know what to do. So let me work on that. Right after, oh, another Delwyn from New Zealand, actually. She says, hi, Lynn. It's much easier to pick the squares off the sandpaper if you use an awl to lift up the corner. Thank you. Did you see what I was doing? Did everyone catch that? That is a great tip. I thought maybe it was because I had too high a grit sandpaper. So, and I bet I don't have an awl right here, but you know what I have? I have a pointer, or I have, so you know how you draw this, and then it's so hard to get this without sanding your fingernail? Let's see. It's not an awl, but it's a very tiny, much better. Yep, and I just have that right here. Thank you. Okay, so let's get back to making some of these final units. And I want to recap, just in case Allison can see us, but she can't get to clue 3. Allison, what you want to do is first you want to make 24 units of Unit 6 of fabric A and B, 2 by 2, 2 by 2, 2 by 3.5. Sew them together so they're 3.5 by 3.5. You want 24 of those. You also want 24 of the same type of unit using fabric A and D. Make 24 of those. You also want 48 of these. And these are made with your 3.5 inch by 3.5 inch A fabric, and then 2 inch by 2 inch E fabric, sewn in the quarter, like that. Now we get to the fun part, units 9 and 10. For unit 9, I'm going to lay this out. We want one that way, one that way, and then pull out your pieces that were 2 by 6.5 in the same color in fabric. Did I goof that up? Uh-oh, you guys are not going to be happy with me. No, I was just going to goof it up. See? Okay. Unit 6, Unit 8, and then fabric D. So this is really important. Make sure that the long fabric that you put down does not match this fabric. So here I have gray. I'm going to put pink at the bottom. Conversely, if I do pink here, I want gray at the bottom. So, and then it's literally, and follow your directions really closely for the placement. This is important. And literally, so Unit 8 and Unit 6 together. Open it up, finger press it, and again, I literally just hold it right there, as I see you all doing. Fold it over. At this state, I'm still not pinning. Set the seam. And then iron down toward the lower piece. And then I just need to cut off the threads. And there is our first Unit 9. 24 of these are needed. And again, I keep them right in front of me so that I make, in fact, I'm just going to make these for right now. This is where it's, this step you could really get turned around, but we won't. In fact, what I'm going to do is do this. Okay. So I'm chain piecing, but I literally, I have my model right here in front of me that I can follow. And then I'm literally laying these down to make sure. I know it seems pedantic, but it's the only way I can keep it straight. And this is fun too. You know, after you make all your units, your 6, 7, and 8, then you can go to town making 9 and 10. Happy mystery quilt making to us. So what else did I need to tell you? Or did you need to tell me? Hopefully everyone's feeling good. And feeling good in general, but having gotten through January. If any of my neighbors are watching, hello. Penny, if you're out there, hi. We'll be planting up in your neck of the woods before we know it. In fact, Bob got a grow light from my mother, and he's going to start some of his kale plants early inside. He got a grow light and he got kale seeds in his stocking, so he's ready to rock and roll. So I'm literally just chain piecing this. I'll stop and I'll make these into Unit 9s. Okay. And this really isn't that hard if you just keep it all straight. Mm. Oh, here's a good idea. I'm just going to block them up right there, stack them up. And then I'll stack up my pinks there. Okay. Oh, I just got into the zone, you guys. The flow, the chi. Is the chi the right word? The flow. Okay, so there are a lot more, and I'm using my, can you see that? My sample there. And I literally now will just run these through. And then we'll have a whole bunch of 9 units, and then we'll make a few 10 units. And then your homework will be to finish these units up by next week. I'm trying to think if there was anything else I forgot to tell you. I don't think so. Hey, Marquet's not on. I hope Marquet's feeling better. And Sue, we're so glad you're back. I'm so glad. Having gone through that, I went through that. It'll be 4 years this March. We went through it. Our family went through it. See how fast this goes when you do the chain piecing? I love this. Ooh, Chris Myers, I love your quilt that your UFO that you finished. It was huge. I wonder if I could find that online quickly, and I'll show it to people. Do these. Oh, and hi to Sandra out there. How are you doing? And to everyone who's playing. To Deb Linehan. I love to see your flannels from the Quilted Crow. Who's out there? Oh, Chris, thank you. Oh, Chris Myers, she sent a picture of her quilt. Thank you. I have to show everyone this. You know what? Maybe it's here. There we go. Look at that. That's hanging from her second floor loft area. Isn't that wonderful? And that's got to be queen size? Is it king size? I love that. Very nice. Thank you for sending that. Okay, so we have one square type left. Let me just finish these two. These are unit 9s, and we'll just do unit 10. Okay, I'm just going to iron one of these to show it to you. There we go, a unit 9. Now, let's make our unit 10. Unit 10 is made by taking, again, a unit 8, and then a unit 7, but then go back to fabric B. So remember, again, the key is if you have pink that looks like that, make sure the bottom is the gray, and vice versa. And I'm going to make myself a model like I did before. Go. I'm literally going to just finger press it toward my darker fabric, which in this case is light pink, but that is darker than white. Here, I'm going to double check my diagram, and that is right. Okay. And again, no pins. Ooh. Okay. Set the seam. And there's a unit 10. And now I'm just literally going to do that. Use it as my model. And then literally sew a whole bunch of unit 8 and 7 together. And the beat goes on. Do a couple of them, and then we will just kind of recap what we did. I cannot believe 60 minutes is almost over. I hope you've had a very relaxing, I hope you have a very relaxing weekend. You deserve it. And if you're working this weekend, hopefully you can look forward to some relaxation in the middle of next week, whatever your schedule allows. One thing for sure, when you work, it makes the relaxation and free time all the more sweet. Right? So you can imagine me, I'll just be finishing this up. Let me do one more unit 10 here. Oops. So I literally have that ironed together. I'm going to follow my pattern. And down we go. So, this is clue 3. Finish this one up. There we go. Another 10. So in summary, at the end of clue 3, you are going to want to have 24 unit 9s and 24 unit 10s. Put them in a pile, put them with what you did last week, and get ready for next week when we really start to assemble things together. We have 2 more weeks. Next week we assemble the main part. The following week we do the border. So that's so to give you a little bit of a hint of what's coming. Again, next Friday we'll be coming to you from Missouri. Please sign in. If like Colleen was laughing, if for no other reason, just to see if we can make it work. Love to have you there. Can't wait to meet you, Beth. For anyone, Kathy K, and anyone else who couldn't make it but wanted to, I'm sorry. We'll figure something out. We'll take lots of pictures. And just as always, just keep being creative. Have a great weekend. And thanks for joining. I'm glad you were here. Bye, everyone.